Put on your sweats. No need to shave. Kick back and relax, because it's Philosophy Friday with Matthew Weiss, where we start off the weekend casual. Hey folks, Matthew Weiss here, weiss-sound.com, and now Weiss Advice here on YouTube. Today we've got a big topic. We are going to be discussing what is the role and what are the boundaries of being a mix engineer. Let's say you get hired to do a gig. Somebody is going to have expectations of you, and those expectations are going to vary. Some people are going to want you to take what's there and simply mix it. Don't get inventive, don't reinvent the wheel. Some people are going to expect that you are going to take whatever liberties you need to take to make the greatest you can of the production, and that might include doing things like changing arrangement, making drops, putting in new sounds, adding background vocals. Sky's the limit, whatever you are trying to do. Now, every client has their own interpretation of what they want, and ultimately we do serve the client, but a lot of the times it's up to us to interpret what the gig is going to be. So how do we navigate that space? All right. In my opinion, and this is very disagreeable, right? You might have a different take, and if you do, I encourage you to argue with me in the comment section below, because I think the argument is valuable and valid. But in my opinion, we cannot avoid our own aesthetic. We are going to want to hear things the way that we want to hear things, and whenever we stray from that, we're not going to do our best work. So my interpretation is lean into what you like, even if it means that you're painting outside the lines. Yes, a lot of clients are going to expect you simply to mix what's there and nothing more, so you are taking a chance if you start getting inventive and changing things around. But especially if it's early on in your career, but really at any point in your career, it's better to take those risks and lose the client with the possible reward of gaining a client who now wants you for your aesthetic and your brand. Because if somebody wants you to simply mix the record, any engineer can effectively do that. Yes, there are going to be nuanced differences from engineer to engineer, but simply mixing the record, most engineers are going to be able to do a satisfactory job of doing that. These gigs tend to be one-offs. They're one song, one project, and then moving on to the next to whoever happens to fit their budget. When it's early on in your career, you're probably trying to get every gig that you can, so it feels like you need to grab these gigs, but it's actually the ones that want your take on things that become the valuable clients down the road, and you want to accumulate those clients, the clients that want you for your opinion and your aesthetic for what needs to happen, and you can only establish that and communicate that by doing the things that need to be done for the record in your opinion. Lean into your aesthetic. Don't be afraid to lose the gig. In fact, commit to the feeling that you will lose gigs by doing things like taking liberties, but do it anyway so that you can accumulate the long-term clients. Now, there are certainly some pros and cons to the different philosophies. We've already covered the big one, which is that you might simply lose the client. The other con is that it takes experience, right? Because we don't want to just start changing things for the sake of changing things. The biggest mistake you can make as an engineer is to become an ego and say, oh, I did this move, I did that, I'll check out this thing that I did, it wasn't like this before. That's a competitive sense of engineering that only makes sense for like mixing competitions. It doesn't make sense in the real world. What you want to be doing is saying, I've made the song as special as I can make it. And sometimes that means acknowledging that the producers got it completely right? That happens very frequently. Sometimes the best way to interpret a record is to simply mix what's in front of you and paint within the lines. And that takes a degree of maturity. So we don't go changing things for the sake of changing things. On top of that, if we are going to start changing things, we no longer have a single lane carved in front of us, right? If we're going to add drum sounds or drum layers to the record, we can add any drum sounds. So now we go from having a specific set of possibilities to infinite possibilities. So it takes more experience and more work to do this correctly. And it's going to take, therefore, also more time. So there are major cons to approaching things this way. It works much better when you're being paid for the gig, not for the hours spent. And it can also, blow up in your face for sure, because as soon as you take something down a certain path, suddenly you're opening up a door that's just filled with different possible revision notes and possibilities, because you are creating something that was not even within the framework that the artist had to begin with. So there's definitely some major cons there. It is more of a commitment, period. Again, I think it's important to be doing this early on in your career, even though you don't have the experience, because the number one thing you need to be doing early on in your career is growing that experience and growing that resume. And for all the times that you miss, the times that you hit are going to stick out and be more important in the long run. And you need to be thinking about the long run early on. Now, there's, of course, some major pros. We've talked about the fact that this will help you establish a sense of uniqueness, that your client is coming to you because you're the person who knows how to either leave well enough alone, don't do anything that's unnecessary because it's already great the way it is, or if something needs to be changed, if background vocals need to show up, if new drums need to be there, that's in your arsenal too, and your judgment and discretion is going to be valued uniquely by the client. That is extremely important, and that is truly what your reputation is built off of. What does your reputation lead to? Your brand, your signature, and your sound, and that's what you're ultimately going to become known for. So the big pro to approaching things this way is that you establish yourself as a brand and as an artist, not simply a work-for-hire service provider. And just on a personal note, it's worth mentioning that when you do put your heart and soul into a record and do the things that to your discretion feel that you need to do to make the record amazing, there's also just a sense of reward that comes with that, a sense of pride, which, makes this job and this life career path more fulfilling. So to tie all of these ideas up, don't go in with the mindset of I'm going to change things and I'm going to make this about me. Go in there with the mindset of I'm going to use my discretion and my judgment to make this into what I believe the artist truly wants. And continue down that path and that mindset, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, particularly early on. The beginning is not for winning, the beginning is for growing, and you are going to ultimately have a very successful career down the line. All right, guys, I look forward to hearing what you have to say about this subject. It's a very, very big subject, so I have not covered every aspect of this in this particular video. I think we can have some fascinating conversations in the comments section. Anyway, if you dig what I'm doing here on this channel, I'm going to need you to hit that like button. I'm going to need you to hit that subscribe with the bell to get the notifications. And of course, we are musicians. Sound is our instrument. I'll catch you next time.